From the grand lobby of Saginaw's former post office, where history was once stamped, sorted, and sent on its way, comes a show about the people who keep the Castle Museum running like a well-oiled machine. Welcome to Postscript, the podcast that delivers the stories behind the exhibits, the laughter behind the scenes, and the passionate folks who keep this historic landmark buzzing. This week on Postscript, we're talking with Addison, a man who wears many hats around the museum. Let's see what he has to say. Well, today we're here with Addison, who is he's got a lot of roles here at the museum. So we're going to find out exactly what he does, what his story is, all of that. So Addison, tell us your name, your official title, and what you do here.
So my name is Addison Jasek. I am an administrator in guest relations here. Like Catherine said, I kind of wear multiple hats. I'm also technically like an assistant curator. Like when we get our deeds of gifts back, I deal with those. I catalog artifacts occasionally. My role here as administrator has been picking up more duties recently, so I've been over there a lot less than I used to be, but I do still do that on occasion when I have nothing else to do. So
you're all over the place, right? You're at the annex, you're at the museum, you're at the front desk sometimes.
Yeah, I also at the front desk sometimes. I even forgot about that. Again, I wear multiple hats. So
tell us about your typical day. Now it sounds like depends where you're located at. Like on most days, what do you do when you first come in?
So when I first come in, I'm usually checking my emails. I'm the one who often sorts the mail, makes sure that the bills get paid, and then filed away so this place keeps running. We may be a nonprofit, but I've learned a lot, and it almost feels like a business in some aspects, just for that fact of just learning how the finances work for this place.
Absolutely.
So, if I don't have anything particularly important that day, I usually will just start off at the annex and just kind of get going on whatever I happen to be working on at the time period. So
okay, cool. So I've noticed when you are sitting at the front desk, you're usually reading something when there's no guests to attend to. So
correct.
What are you currently reading? What do you like to read? What's that all about?
It depends. I like both fiction and nonfiction. For fiction, I'm very much like a classic snob. I like my 1984s.
Okay.
I like Eric Remarque. All Quiet on the Western Front is one of my favorite novels. If I'm reading nonfiction, I like to read a lot of stuff that's like either Renaissance related, especially Renaissance humanism, is something I've been particularly interested in. Even when I was in college, I was something I really focused in on, read a lot of that kind of material. Kind of got more interested in the classics as I went along. I actually thought I was going to go for my PhD pretty quickly, and I was going to go into classics. I was especially interested in papyrology, which is just like the preservation, translation of like papyri scrolls.
Okay.
U of M actually works a lot with Herculaneum scrolls, and that was something I was really interested in. So I thought that was something I was going to do. But then things just kind of fell into place, and I happened to be working here, and I kind of liked working here a lot.
My chair is slowly. Look how fun this is.
So I liked working here a lot, and I also had family obligations, and it's one of those things that I hold that principle pretty high of family values, and it was one of those things I just couldn't really abandon my familial duties to just go pursue a PhD, because that's a big commitment. And so I just decided that I'm like, this is what works for me at this moment. Will I ever maybe attempt to go to grad school? Maybe. I don't know. But as of this moment, I'm kind of comfortable where I am. Also, what I read a lot at the front desk is a lot of Latin, because I taught myself Latin. Been doing it now for 5-6 years. I'm currently reading Virgil's Aeneid. So that's been fun. That is not easy. Reading poetry in your own language is hard enough as is, let alone reading in a dead language that's thousands of years old.
Why did you choose to teach yourself Latin? And
it was one of those things that like I always kind of called to me as a language for some reason. And then also too, because of me working in a lot of like, Renaissance, medieval literature, and even eventually getting interested in the classics, like, I became more and more obsessed with like Rome and just interested in that kind of stuff. So it kind of just made sense to like learn that language. Cause I'm like, if you're going to have like any credibility, if you're going to talk about this, I feel like you should know like how to read the sources. So,
well, there you go. If you're into American history like myself, it's just English. Although I will admit my secondary language for graduate school was German. And so I once had to translate as part of my big, like, and you do it to get through this. It was like a whole crazy magazine article about the Watergate scandal, but it was in German.
Got you.
And I had to translate it back to English.
Yeah, I was always potentially interested in learning German as well, because like I was always told that if you are going to pursue a classics degree, you kind of need to know a lot of languages.
Yeah, that's true.
Not only do you need to know Latin and Greek, which eventually I would like to learn Greek at some point as well. German and Italian and French are like apparently like if you want to read the most up to date like stuff in the classics, you kind of need to know those languages. So you're kind of a master of multiple languages, which sounds like a lot. But if I ever get to that point, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
It's a lot, but if you like doing it, then it's not such a big deal, right?
Yeah, learning language was really fun. You really have to have a lot of dedication, though, if you really want to do it. And you have to have the time. What you put into it is what you get out of it.
So dead languages aside, who's your favorite author of, let's say, fiction?
Fiction? In my top 3 books, I always said that Homer's Iliad was always my number 1. I always really enjoyed that. I feel like every time I reread it, I always find something new that like I'm just like, I never even thought about that. My second is All Quiet on the Western Front. That book, for some reason, spoke to me in a way that like no other book had, and I even have a first edition of that book on my shelf. So.
Nice.
And then my third was always The Brothers Karamazov. That was always by Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
That was always my third.
See, I'm more of a Steinbeck person myself. Grapes of Wrath. And
I do also, because for those listening, one of my side hobbies is collecting rare and antiquarian books. So I do have a lot of like first editions or at least collectible copies of books. So I do also have Grapes of Wrath on my shelf.
Nice.
It's a first edition. It's actually the 8th printing of that first edition, but it is technically still a first edition.
Very cool.
So.
See, you're very interesting. He tried to tell me.
I am not.
He would not be interesting at all for this podcast. And I said, we will find what's interesting.
I told her, because she kind of twisted my arm for this, I was telling her that I said, I don't think I'm that interesting of a person, but
see, people walk in, they see at the front desk, they're not going to know all this, right? So this is pretty radical stuff that you taught yourself one dead language. There's more to come, apparently. And, you collect classic books and all that. So, and you mentioned family. Who you got for family?
So I have my wife, Paulina, and then I have my son, Wesley. He's currently 3 right now. So,
And how is it having a 3-year-old?
It is a lot. Speaking of reading, like I can only read at select times because, he demands all the attention when he's around. So whether I like it or not sometimes.
Yes. Having a child has ruined me from reading real books. So I usually read something where you don't have to put a lot of thought into it, or a lot of audiobooks. So.
Yeah, that's kind of why I try to like squeeze reading in here when I'm like at the front desk, or like, I also sometimes will read after he goes to bed or whatnot. But I just try to squeeze that in. Same thing with like, I like playing video games too. So I try to squeeze that in where I can. So.
What's your favorite video game?
Oh, geez. That one's a hard question. I have a lot of video games I like. I've been really obsessed with like Resident Evil as like a series in general, but there's a lot of those games. So I can really like, probably Resident Evil 1 is one of my favorites out of that one. So I guess we'll go with that for right now because that's what I'm like on. But anyways.
Okay. All right. So see, just the scope of your interest is radical.
Not really.
So what's your favorite thing that you do here at the museum, at the Annex in general?
I think, that's kind of a difficult question because like I'm constantly doing different stuff and it makes it nice and refreshing, which is always great. I do really like interacting with guests. I always like touching base with guests. And, as I pick up more knowledge about Saginaw County, I like to kind of like, when I see somebody looking at like an artifact that like, I know a little bit about, I like to kind of jump in and add that little extra information for some flair. I also, it's fun cataloging too, because I like, I like being able to like be hands-on with the artifacts. So that's always fun. When it comes to the finance side, I mean, finance is finance. It's really interesting, and I think it's a very useful skill to have learned a lot of this. So in that aspect, I'm glad that like I do take part in that. But is it the most interesting?
It takes a special person to love numbers and finance and all that.
Yeah, it's like interesting in the fact of, like I said, of the earlier I referenced the business thing. It kind of like is interesting in that like, wow, I didn't realize how much went into like, running a business, even if we are a nonprofit. Like there's a lot of different aspects to it that I just did not even think about before I took this job. So
yeah, for guests walking in, I mean, probably the only interaction they're most likely to have is with front desk staff, right? They don't understand, what all goes into a museum.
Yes, of course.
Part of talking to all the people that work here is, how do we build out exhibits and what goes into the business aspect of running a museum and outreach and all that. So there's a lot to it, right? We all have a very important role here at the museum.
Yes. So I make sure that the lights stay on.
And how many light switches are there?
Oh, geez. I honestly don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I've heard like over 100.
I don't know if there's that many. There's a lot of like, because here's the thing. Here's like an insider thing for the people listening at home. There's a lot of light switches that look like they're like important, but then you flip them and they don't do anything. I don't know if the wiring has been changed since, that like they're just not connected in the same way that they used to be. But to be honest with you, it's one of those things that you'd be surprised if when you do it consistently, this goes for all our front desk people, when you do it enough, you can probably do it in like 10, 15 minutes. Like it does not take too long. Like people can really like speed through that once you get the hang of it. So,
well, there you go. A lot of light switches. Some don't do anything. They probably do something. You just don't know. Like in my house, like I have one of these houses where they thought it was a great idea that for every light switch that goes on, there's another one that goes off like somewhere else. And, you can flip flop them. So if they all get flipped up or down the wrong ways, well, then it's like suddenly it seems like your light doesn't work.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's, that could be part of it, but I also just think that like, because this is such an old building, I think some of the wiring has just changed. Some of those light switches are just useless. But the thing is once you kind of learn what switches to do, you kind of just avoid the ones that are just like, I don't need to interact with that. So,
well, who knows? Maybe it's switching on the lights over at the waterworks or something. When you're like, the switch doesn't do anything.
People are really going, what's going on?
That's right. Old Saginaw. It's all connected, right? So, all right. Final question. I've been asking various people this. What do you feel is your spirit animal?
That is a good question. I've always been privy to lions.
Lions? Ooh, okay.
So probably a lion.
And why a lion? Why are you feeling that?
I think I admire like the idea that lions like invoke courage and bravery. That's something like I often aspire to like